Hi everyone, how we doing today? How we doing today? Hey Pa, hello Astral, hello Torg, hello Water Knight, hello Tyler Null. Welcome, welcome. Happy to have you. Yeah, right. Fancy seeing this at this time. I know, right? It's a different time than I normally stream. I normally stream later in the evening, but it is still the semester still hasn't started yet, so I still can afford to stream at this time. Ah, I'm not gonna putter around as much as usual. I just found out earlier today that Sai, my VTuber child, my lovely VTuber child, is having a stream to celebrate her graduating with her PhD. Um, Pretty soon. She did delay it due to tech issues, so but I want to make it to as much as I can. I'm so sorry. I know that I scheduled this the other week, but I guess poor communication. I maybe I missed something. I don't know. But either way, today we are doing an Ask a Professor stream. I put a form up like a week ago or so, asking for y'all to ask your questions about things that, well, uh, related to being a college instructor. I mean, okay, so like, what if you aren't familiar, or if you've forgotten, or generally stuff like who am I and how am I qualified to do this Q&A? Hi, everybody. I'm Mylan Akamon. Nice to meet you. I do have my PhD, and I am currently a college instructor. I'm not technically a professor. Like, in that professor is a job title, and professor's not part of my job title, but like my students call me professor a lot of the time. Not that I tell them to, because I know certain people would get kind of elitist and angry about that. But like, I don't tell them to call me professor. But I think a lot of people would probably consider me a professor, and the way that most people normally think of the word professor, I would probably fall under that definition, in that I am somebody with a PhD who teaches college level classes. Clickbait, I know, right? I'm horrible. I'm sorry, I've fooled you all. No, I had that on the disclaimer for the image though that I was using to advertise the stream, so I think that's probably fine. I hope that's fine. Yeah, so I did get a fair number of questions, and we're going to go through them. If you have any additional questions that you would like to ask, I believe I have linked the Google form in the description of this stream, so you can, I've got the thing set up so that I can see if new questions come in. But I do have slides made up for the questions that I got before the stream started. I am one who professes. This is true. I profess. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, additional disclaimers. I'm not at a research, or I am at a Research One university. A Research One university is a university where like they do a lot of like researchy stuff and stuff like that, and they get a lot of research grants. Research is a major expectation for a lot of the faculty, but I am not one of the faculty who is expected to do research. I'm getting distracted by whatever the hell that black box is at the bottom of the thing. Hopefully that's nothing. Anyway, yeah, I do that. I'm instructional faculty, which means that my primary job is teaching. I'm not expected to do any research as part of my job, though I am still allowed to do research if I want to. So those are my disclaimers. Um, so without any further delay, let's get started. Let's go to the first question. This is from Tyler. Thank you for the questions, by the way, Tyler. And thank you to everybody who submitted questions. Much appreciated. First question was, what made you want to be a professor rather than a research psychologist? This is an interesting question. Now, if I want to get technical about it, many research psychologists are professors. Many research psychologists are professors. They're professor. Most people with professor in their job title do end up focusing. The box may just not be us not having enough chat to fill the full area. Maybe. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna ignore it. Nope, never mind. Nope. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should go and see what's going on there. But yeah, so professors just like a lot of professors do research, and research psychologists, many research psychologists are in fact professors. I chose to do like a teaching focus specifically because I really did not. Is it just welcome to chat community guidelines stuff that's so annoying? I don't know how to make that go away. If I click the learn more button, will it go away? It didn't. Oh well. There was an attempt. Anyway, I didn't want to deal with publish or perish culture. That's the main reason. Like, I do love, you want the community guidelines to, I don't want the community guidelines to go away. I want the black box at the bottom of my chat to go away. Anyway, so the thing about if many research professor positions are tenure track, and tenure is a really awesome thing. It gives you a lot more job security and stuff like that, but tenure track is very stressful. It is incredibly stressful to try and get tenure, and I did not want any part of that. Like, I love doing research, don't get me wrong. I adore doing research, but research for me, I kind of view it as more of a hobby than a calling. Like, I adore doing it, but I didn't want to have that looming over my head as something to do that I needed to do for my job. And also, I like teaching more than research. I also kind of thought that there would be better work-life balance. Hey, PogJam Senpai, welcome to the stream. But yeah, I thought there'd be more work-life balance in teaching rather than research, but I've learned that work-life balance in academia isn't so much about what type of job you have as it is about your own ability to draw boundaries. Academia is a constant shade of anxiety management. Hey, Fi, you are so correct. Yeah, I thought that this would be a less stressful job than having to do research in addition to teaching. And I think in some ways it probably is because I'm not keeping as many balls in the air. You know, like I'm not juggling as many responsibilities, but also I am the type of person who will. Oops. I'm really bad at having work-life balance. I will be answering emails at like I'll be answering student emails within a minute of receiving them. I will be answering and sending emails past midnight on like a Saturday. I will be answering my work email during Thanksgiving dinner. I thought it would be better work-life balance, but the problem is I am bad at work-life balance. I don't want the students to get upset, and I also don't like having things on my to-do list. I don't like just sitting back while things oh my gosh, I gotta write a letter of recommendation that's in my inbox right now, and I just hate that feeling. So but yeah, I always wanted to do teaching more than research. I love research, but that was not, I didn't want to feel like I had to do research. I want to do research on my own time and on my own schedule. I didn't want that publish or perish pressure to try and get tenure or anything. That seemed miserable. My advisor during grad school was, he was only getting like 3 to 4 hours of sleep when he was on the tenure clock. I did not want that life. So that's why, many reasons, but that's why I decided to go teaching focused as opposed to becoming a research psychologist. Letter of rec writing on stream? No. No. I'm not gonna do that on stream. That sounds like a recipe for doxing me and one of my students, and there's no way I would do it. Well, I guess if I didn't show it, if it was like a co-working stream and you couldn't see what I was working on, maybe, but like... Professors are also kind of mean when they're on tenure track, personal experience of the tenure track professors. I've met some who were mean, I've met some that were very nice, but it is an incredibly stressful position to be in. Like, yeah, life is hard. Like, the expectations for tenure track are higher than ever these days, and if you don't get tenure, you're essentially fired. Like, tenure is all or nothing. You either get tenure or you're out of a job. There's no middle ground. It's not, and you don't really get a second chance. You can appeal the decision, I think, but like, I don't think appeals usually do anything. Like, it's very much you work your butt off for 5 years. You're working desperately hard for 5 years to meet standards that are, I consider the standards pretty unreasonable. And at the end of it, you just gotta really hope that you get tenure, because if you don't, you don't have a job anymore. I have a vague conception of tenure, but what actually is it? Oh, that's a great question. Tenure is this thing, like, different jobs have tenure and it means different things in different jobs. Tenure in an academic job is essentially a lot more job security. Like everybody, even me, I'm now at the most senior level of my teaching professor job, but I'm not eligible for tenure, which means that I'm on a renewing contract. And my contract, the more senior I become, the longer my contract lasts. But theoretically, they could just not renew my contract at the end of my contract time for whatever reason. It could be like maybe they just think I have bad vibes, maybe I'm not doing a good job, maybe I said something on social media that they disagree with, maybe they think it's weird that I'm a Mothman, I don't know. Like, they can theoretically just not renew my contract at the end of my contract. Tenure, you're sort of like, you're hired and you're not on a renewing contract. It's not a matter of renewing your contract. The only thing that can, and you can't get fired for things in tenure, you can't get fired for things that are outside of your duties. Theoretically, the way that tenure is supposed to be is if you have tenure, you have a job unless it gets to the point where you are not fulfilling the responsibilities of your job. They cannot get rid of you for financial reasons. They cannot get rid of you. Like, they can't lay you off. They can't fire you because you're doing weird stuff outside of work. Like, there have been times where professors committed some pretty heinous crimes, but they couldn't get fired because they had tenure, unless, like, the crime was so bad that they ended up in jail and couldn't fulfill their duties as a professor. Kind of stuff. Like being dumped in a House of Lords at the end of a political career. I don't know enough about British politics to say whether that's a good analogy, but it's like, yeah, it's a very strong type of job security where they cannot fire you unless A, you are not doing your job at all, or B, they just cut your entire department. But even if they, like, let's say they eliminated the psychology department at my university and I had tenure, even then they still have some obligation to try and move my appointment into a different department, you know? You can't get fired for things outside of your duties. Sounds kind of like the thing that should be the case for everyone. I agree, Torg. I agree. The point of tenure, the idea behind tenure is that it should allow professors to have more freedom of speech. Professors should be able to say, the idea of tenure is that professors can put forth controversial ideas and like say like state these things without getting fired for the things that they say. It's supposed to give them freedom in terms of academics, freedom in terms of what they research, freedom in terms of the theories that they follow, freedom in terms of this and this and that. Basically so that they can research whatever they want without fear of getting fired. So they can express opinions even if the administration doesn't agree with those opinions. That's the idea behind tenure, is my understanding. Of course, I'm not tenure track, so maybe I can't answer that question quite as well as other people, but that's my general understanding of what tenure is and how it works and stuff like that. Yeah. Did that make sense? I mean, it's a great thing. It's just getting tenure. First of all, tenure track jobs are incredibly competitive. And then, like, the process of getting tenure once you get a tenure track job sounds like a nightmare. It is like the gauntlet. Like I said, like my PhD advisor, my first PhD advisor, was only getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, every night, for 5 years trying to get tenure, and he didn't get tenure. So, oh, fun times. I worried about him a lot. Hey, yo, guys, how you doing? Yeah, it sounds rough. Yeah, it is rough. It is rough. Tenure, like, you think you're free after grad school, but tenure, earning freedom of speech by participating in the Hunger Games. That's not a bad metaphor, Torg. I mean, nobody died. I'm certain people have died trying to get tenure, not because the university did, but because, like, of the stress or whatever, you know, like, but it's rough. It's rough. And I didn't want to deal with it. I did not want any part of that. The uni killed the... Not what happened. Yeah, yeah, and that's why I went teaching. Hey, CDM, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Yeah, so I hope that adequately answered this question, and we went on a bit of a tangent, but I think that's fine. All right, we have another one from Tyler. Have you worked at R1, R2 institutions, community college institutions, or other style private institutions, and how do they compare if they have? If you have. So, I work at a Research One public university, which, public university meaning that it is funded, at least in part, by the state that I live in. Research One meaning that research is a major focus. In fact, research is more of a priority than teaching the students, is kind of the idea, especially for, well, mainly for for the overall university and like for the people who do research. They're expected to spend a lot more of their time on research than they are on teaching. I have never taught at another institution. I'm sorry. I've never taught an R2 institution. I've never taught at a private institution, so I can't really speak. I have friends who've taught at other institutions and private institutions. Some things I can say, other things I can't say because I don't think I'm supposed to know them. But I know at like R2 institutions, professors are still expected to do research, at least the ones where that's part of their job. They're still expected to do research at things like R2 institutions and liberal arts institutions, but they have a lot more of a teaching load. Like some of my friends who work at R2 institutions, they are tenure track, or some of them even have tenure, but they are expected to teach considerably more classes in addition to their research than the professors at my university, which is an R1 university, are expected to teach. I think the professors at my university have like a 1-2 teaching load, which means they teach 3 courses a year, 1 course one semester and 2 courses another semester. I think my friends who teach at R2 or like liberal arts institutions tend to have more like a 2-2 load or even a 3-3 teaching load. So essentially, they're expected to do more teaching, but they still have to do research. And I imagine if I worked at one of those institutions, I would also have to do more teaching relative to, like, even though I'm not in a research position, I would be doing more teaching, just generally speaking. I would probably have at least 2 or 3, or like at least 1 or 2 more classes a semester than I currently do. I've heard of people teaching a 6-6 load, so teaching 12 classes a year, 6 a semester, which is wild. That's actually double my current expected teaching load. I can take on extra classes, and I do often at least take on 1 extra class a year. But yeah, what about a 6-7 load? I'm sure theoretically that I wouldn't be surprised if that has happened. I'm thinking of like adjunct professors. Adjunct professors often, they are not necessarily. Dang it, Tyler! Are we gonna end the stream? Are we gonna we It's still 10 minutes till Sai's stream, but Tyler. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna start biting people. Yeah, that's a good endpoint. Okay, we made it through 2 questions. Goodbye, everybody. I told you that I've already done that meme once. I've told you. Yeah, I think I gotta lean into it. I think I can use the 6-7 thing to really make my students cringe this coming semester. It's a shame that I'm not teaching a math-based class this semester, because it'll be harder to sneak that in. But you know what? I'm gonna weaponize that against my students. I'm gonna make them cringe. I hope the 2026 meme reset would get rid of... It doesn't reset on a yearly basis, unfortunately. My experience with memes is that they reset on like a quarterly basis. So we're not quite there yet. But we have reached the irony stage of 6-7. We have now reached the point where it's no longer funny on its own. It's more funny as an ironic thing than it is, like, as a thing itself. We're at the point where it has reached saturation, where it's being mentioned on late night talk shows, is going to be really bad when 2026 becomes 2027. We'll be in like post-irony at that stage. If I was a lecturer, I'd definitely solve a question filled with 67s. Oh man, teaching statistics. Every semester in statistics, I have to deal with 69s, I have to deal with 420s. Like, I guess theoretically I could make it so all the example problems will never have any of those numbers in them, but I just don't want to deal with that. And if students get a kick out of it, good for them. Good for them. You just kind of got to play it off, I guess. I have no idea what psych research looks like, so I'll keep listening this time. Also, late night shift means I'm low on brain juice. That's fair, CDM. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be talking a lot about research today because my job doesn't actually really involve research. The 60s are filling up with meme numbers. It's true. How many meme numbers can we fit into that? I had a kid do the emotional damage meme in lab. They were not Asian. Oh no. Oh no. I mean, I might talk a bit about research in terms of what my colleagues do, but, 68 plus or minus 1. It's true. All right, let's keep going, because I do want to catch some of Sai's stream. I definitely intend to raid into Sai's stream, but let's, okay. This is from C. I don't know who C is, but I'm going to do my best to answer this question. I have a background in computer engineering, and I'm planning to pivot into human-computer interface. HCI. I've always heard HCI is standing for human-computer interaction, but I'm assuming human-computer interface and human-computer interaction are the same field, with a Master's of Science in Psychology. Since this is a non-linear path, what specific gaps do you usually see in students with technical backgrounds? I want to make sure I prepare effectively, especially regarding research methodology. Thank you for the question, C. This is actually... I'm not totally equipped to answer this question, but I do actually know there was a grad student in my grad program when I was in there who was doing basically exactly this. He'd gotten his bachelor's in computer science. I think he might have even had a master's in something related to computer science or computer engineering, and he was trying to pivot into getting a PhD in psychology. So not a master's in psychology, but a PhD in psychology. And also, when I was applying to PhD programs, I applied to psychology PhD programs and HCI PhD programs. So I was coming at it from a psychology background, not a comp sci background. The main thing that he struggled with the most was research methodology. So I'm glad that C has that on their radar. He really, really struggled with research methods because he had not engineering and stuff like that. He had not taken research methods class. I think to some extent you can catch yourself up on concepts in psychology and stuff. And I think he was doing decent at that. But I remember I was in the same research methods class as him, and he was really struggling with it because he'd never really learned that much about experimental design or between versus within subjects design or statistics for hypothesis testing and stuff like that, because that just wasn't part of his education. And he was essentially hopping directly into a graduate level class while missing 2 to 3 years worth of undergraduate level classes that were supposed to prepare him for that. And he had a really rough time, and he ended up switching into more of a computer-focused PhD program. So research methods, basic research methods, absolutely that's the thing that you want to catch up on. At least, I'm extrapolating from a single person to just in general, but absolutely catch up on research methods. That is the main thing that you definitely want to do. Study experimental design, study hypothesis testing, be generally familiar. Maybe even read some psychology papers both to get familiar with how they're formatted and just how studies in psychology are formatted. But if you can take maybe a free online course in research methods in psychology, that would be the number one thing that I would do to get prepared for that. I think that's a really cool path. I want to take that path too. Coming from the psychology direction, I would love to do more computer science and computer engineering stuff. I don't know what I would need to do to move over to your side, but yeah, if you want to get a Master of Science in Psychology, absolutely research methods. Mylan's videos and APA style papers. I have been considering doing, how I did that series of lectures in statistics? I have been considering doing a series of lectures in research methods as well. But I definitely do a class. Watching me live stream lectures isn't necessary. You can ask questions and talk with me about it, but it's not necessarily super interactive. Definitely try and design your own studies if you can get feedback on them and stuff like that, because they will a master's program in psychology, a PhD program in psychology will absolutely expect that you already have a fair amount of basic knowledge in this field. And if you don't, it's going to be really painful. And you may end up like that other student who ended up transferring to another. He was super bright. I'm not saying that he was super, super bright, but like master's and PhD programs in psychology do assume that you have some level of prerequisite knowledge of the way psychological research is conducted. Because most psychology undergraduate programs do tend to be more focused on the research side of it than the practice side of it. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which is, I still think it's kind of silly because most of these people majoring in psychology want to go into the practice and clinical side of it, but we tend to focus on the research side of it because most professors are researchers, and also because of something called like it's like the Boulder model or something. I don't remember the exact history of it, but anyway, research methods, brush up on research methods, brush up on study design, brush up on hypothesis testing. Do that. You can learn like what cognitive dissonance and stuff is along the way. And generally, like, if you're getting specialized, especially if you're going to, like, HCI, it may not even be necessarily useful to get a broad understanding of findings in psychology, as long as you can teach yourself the more specific stuff you need to know. Research methods, though, you'll need to know at least some basic parts of that before you get rolling. So I'm glad that's already on your radar. Oh, all right. I hope that addressed that question. See, what else do we have next? I got a lot of questions from Z. I'm very grateful, so I'll do my best. Z asks, how have you navigated the use of AI in education and teaching? I am in constant pain. I am in constant pain. I am in agony every day. There's a lot of debate over how to deal with AI in education, and there's no clear answer on how to deal with AI in education. And I have there's many places don't have a clear policy for AI yet. They leave it to the professors. Everything is being written by AI. Student papers are AI. Teachers grade with AI. It just feels so dystopian, and I know it's happening. I know that it's happening. I have colleagues who rely a lot on AI. Students use the hell out of AI. The vast majority of the people that I know that are heavily relying on AI don't understand what AI is or how it works. I I was talking with an RA just today about how he's bragging about how he can easily notice AI papers. It's not that easy. A lot of people think that it's easy. It's not that easy, and AI detectors are not reliable enough to work or be used as evidence. I put part of my dissertation into an AI detector, and I wrote my dissertation before generative AI was nearly at the level it is now, and it said my dissertation was written by AI. I personally don't allow my students to use AI for anything course related. Do they do it anyway? Absolutely. They absolutely do. My main concern with AI, like, it's easy if the kid starts a sentence with, okay, I'll make this sound more like a middle school. Oh gosh, literally 1984. And he showed us that it creates rubrics and grades using AI. If students use AI, so can I. But what about the students that aren't using AI? What about the students that aren't using it? And like, what's even the point? What's even, if the students aren't writing the, okay, for me, it gets back to why are we giving the students these assignments in the first place? Dead school theory? I'm genuinely concerned about that in some ways. But like, I think the student, and like I think that there's good reasons for this, but I think that many of the students and a fair number of the faculty, and I don't blame them for this, like I understand why this has happened, But I think many of the students and many of faculty have lost sight of why we're doing what we're doing. Why are we assigning these papers? Why are we assigning these homework assignments? The point of assigning these things is to get you to practice and learn how to do things. Like we want to get your brain actively engaged with the material. We want to make sure that you understand the material and that you can process it in your own brain. That is why we are assigning these things. We want to have an understanding of how well you understand the concepts and how capable you are at doing the tasks that we're trying to teach you. If you use AI to do it, you have completely defeated the point of the assignment. There was no point in having that paper at all. If you used AI to write the paper, there was no point in the paper. There's just no point. You have completely bypassed the entire reason the paper was assigned. You've completely bypassed the entire reason the homework was assigned. Using AI for college assignments, assuming that assignment is for, like, assuming that you're using AI for the part of the assignment that is testing the relevant knowledge, which is usually most of the time the whole assignment is testing the relevant knowledge. You have defeated the point of the assignment. There was no point in the assignment whatsoever. You are bypassing the learning process entirely. You're bypassing the evaluation process entirely. Grades no longer have any meaning. I no longer know if you're prepared to move on to the next course in the series. Your degree has no meaning because it no longer says that you know anything. It only says that you were able to fool someone into making it look like you knew anything. It doesn't say anything about your skills because you outsourced those. You never bothered to learn the skills. You just had AI do the things for you. What's the point of a degree if AI can do everything for you? Like, then they don't need to hire someone with a degree. They can hire someone for cheap. Like, not to mention that AI is wrong about a lot of things, and because of how generative AI and large language models work, it will never be possible to create a large language model that is accurate about everything. That's just not how those models work. That's not how... You would have to create a completely different type of model. I should check on chat. So I have very, very strong feelings about this, and I'm trying to be... A lot of the AI stuff is like a moral issue for me, so I clearly have very strong, very intense feelings about it, and I'm trying not to let that get in the way of my answer, because I know that morality differs between people, and so I shouldn't impose my own ideas there, but generally speaking, I refuse to use AI, personally. I refuse to use AI at all. I ban my students from using AI, which I recognize is kind of silly, but like, personally, I avoid it. I've moved to like a bunch. I'm more heavily weighting exams, so I'm doing more assignments in class. I think Sai mentioned your final project is actually a project defense. Yeah, in one of my classes, I have moved it so it's individual presentations. Like one of the final portions of the project is individual presentations where I have the student present verbally to me live and I ask them questions, and I do not so I can see they aren't allowed to have any device that they could use AI on to answer the questions. I want to know if they understand what they did and stuff like that. A lot of professors are moving to like pen and paper in-person exams. We cannot trust take-home assignments anymore. If you're not doing the assignment in the classroom in front of us, we can't trust it. We don't know if you... A lot of it is just, I love teaching, but it's... Then again, the whole like grading structure and how we assess and report levels of student knowledge is also borked. I guess, how have I navigated it? I banned it everywhere, but that, of course, that's not going to do anything. And it's just generally making me feel really hopeless. I wonder if education meta will be more defense-based. Probably so. Probably so. I think that's the only real way you can do it. We back to oral quizzes then. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people are moving towards that sort of thing. Preparing for my proposal defense was probably the highest quality learning I'd ever done. Yeah, yeah. I think we're moving towards that. But this trick is like, it's not always possible. With like, I have classes with well over 100 students in them, and it's not really possible. Like this past semester I had them do like video presentations, but of course you can still use AI for video presentations. It's how do I get over 100 students in a single class, to do oral defense. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've I've been guilty of that for a course I couldn't attend the lectures of, but I never used AI for a lab report. I'm glad you've never used it for a lab report, at least. I mean, students would cheat on tests way before the advent of AI. Do you feel like it's the same, or is there a fundamental difference there? For take-home exams, I think it was harder. It was harder to, like, you could cheat. And especially on take-home exams, you absolutely could cheat. And that was a huge problem during COVID. But cheating was often a lot more obvious before AI, and also students, when they were cheating, often didn't know enough to cheat well. If that makes sense. Like, I'm thinking of Chegg. Like, a lot of the time they would go to Chegg and have Chegg do the answers for them, and then they would just they would, like, copy and paste the answers from Chegg, and I could find that, and I could be like, you just copied and pasted this answer. And a lot of the, like, experts on Chegg actually had no idea what they were talking about, so the student, even if we didn't catch them, would get 0 points whatsoever anyway, and, like, stuff like that. And AI it's harder to catch, and students need less knowledge to be able to cheat with it. So it's worse, I would say. Like, I think I'm not sure if it's a fundamental difference, but it's worse because to some extent, to cheat before, you had to have at least some knowledge of, like, what to Google, or, like, which sources were and were not going to give you an accurate answer. And if you didn't have that knowledge, the cheating you did would probably still lead to a bad grade, or would be very obvious or very obviously wrong. AI has made it so it's easier to cheat even without some prerequisite knowledge. My professors have decided to try and resolve us potentially using AI by making us record a 10-minute video on a topic along with the dissertation, but I don't really get how it works as a solution. Right, Astral? Like, I think the idea with the video projects is if a student's just reading off of a script generated by AI, some students can pull that off really effectively. Other students will stumble, and it becomes very obvious that they're reading off a script and they're, like, using words that they don't know what they're doing. So it becomes a little easier to catch it and, like, to do these presentations at scale in larger classes. But I still don't think video is a great solution. The thing is, while defense would work, it would require more work per student, which means more teachers per student. Well, pretending the AI works lets schools have fewer teachers per student. Yeah. We just don't have the resources to have every individual student do defense in larger classes. In smaller classes, I'm absolutely moving towards that. In bigger classes, you can't. Aren't the point of take-home exams to be so difficult you can use any resource anyway? I've never taken one. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like, a lot of take-home exams would like to do that. Other take-home exams, though, not necessarily. Maybe it's because there's just not time in a class for the exam to happen. I know a lot of people after COVID are still doing exams online, but in the classroom. Take-home exams, like, yeah, I have a friend who does take-home exams that he makes very, very difficult, because he expects you to use a lot of resources. But AI will just answer the question without you having to access any resources whatsoever. And sometimes it will get it wrong, of course, but other times it will get it right. I graduated nearly a decade before AI was a thing, so this entire situation just blew my mind. Right, CDM? I agree. And, like, I was never somebody who... I was, like, a disgustingly model student, so even, like, the idea of cheating or, like, stuff like that, I even wouldn't really ask for help. I would just try and brute force everything myself, for better or for worse. So the concept of cheating at all, or getting outside help at all, feels really foreign to me, much less just outsourcing your entire education to a statistical model. Like, Anyway, anyway, I need to get off this topic. It's just making me sad. It's making me sad and upset. Sometimes our teacher would replace exams with group presentations, and my classmates would celebrate every time. I've been doing group presentations, but I moved to individual presentations because group presentations, I still see a lot of like free writing in that. Like, students can't rely on AI as much in group presentations, but they will absolutely just like push off all the work on their group mates. And that's like, I don't see how that's any better. I think that's just as bad, you know? Maybe even worse. Like, on an interpersonal level, it's worse. On a learning level, I'd say it's about the same. Um, so I've been moving to individual presentations. Which is fun, but it definitely takes up a lot more time. And of course, it makes the students more anxious if they're presenting as an individual instead of a group, which sucks. As someone with stage fright, I do feel bad doing that, but I'm not really sure how else to do it in our current day and age. Anyway, let's keep going. Has VTubing or streaming helped you in teaching content better? I think so. Or they each do a part alone, then join it together in a disconnected mess. Yeah, I've seen that too. See, some students clearly put way more work into their part. Other students just completely phoned it in. And like, you'll see like a student doing like the introduction of a project really beautifully, and then a student do the methods, just like put 5 bullet points on a slide and read them verbatim. For group presentations, I wait to see if there are bigger nerds than me who would do the entire presentation. If not, I prefer doing it myself. Yeah. I always hated group work because I was always the one that ended up doing all of it. I'm just like, I'd rather do it myself. And I'm kind of more moving my classes towards that level, but I feel weird about it because like one of my classes' aims is to teach you how to do research, and most research in psychology is done in a group. So I don't know. It's hard to balance. Anyway, has this helped me teach my content better? I think so. Like, I started this YouTube channel partially because I was dissatisfied with my current method of teaching. Mainly because I wanted to use more nerdy examples, but when I'm teaching in lecture, I'm very, very careful to use examples that I think the vast majority of the students will know. And on YouTube, there's no pressure. I can use my anime examples as much as I want. But like, a lot of times when I'm, say, revising content for YouTube, like when I was preparing that stats lecture series, I ended up making some improvement on that lecture, and I ended up going back to the lecture that I was going to use for my actual students and doing that improvement. Myelin class equals craft, Myelin on YouTube equals art. Maybe so, maybe. I definitely get to have a lot more fun with YouTube and have more freedom at YouTube. Oh no, Astral, oh no. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I think that's done better. I think interacting with chat it's made, like, I like it. In fact, one thing I miss from COVID, actually, I guess this is sort of this and sort of not. One thing I really, really miss from COVID is the ability to have a live chat. Because, like, students aren't always comfortable asking in class, or, like, they feel like they're interrupting something. Whereas in chat, you can just put something in chat. You're not as identifiable. And also, like, I can get to it whenever I'm ready. I really miss having a live chat, and I've actually found a service, I think, that will allow me to have a live chat in my big lecture class this coming semester, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think streaming has gotten me better at like interacting with a live chat than I was during COVID, and better at allowing me to balance interaction with chat while keeping on topic. I got derailed a lot during COVID, even more than I get derailed in chat. I think it's been great practice. Ooh, live chat for live classes sounds cool, right? I love having a live chat in a live class. Like, I'm really hoping that this works, because that's the only thing that I miss from COVID. Well, there's a couple things, but like, that's the main big thing that I've missed from COVID. And I just think it's so much nicer, allows for so much more of a connection with students. And so yeah, like preparing for like doing stuff on VTubing has helped me revise my education material. What's the thing's name? It's called a Cadly, I think. I need to look more into how it works. I definitely enjoy the aspect of being able to annoy you with questions while watching the stats lectures. It doesn't feel interruptive. It allows asking the minute the question hits. Right, Tyler? Right? And I really like that from like the instructor end too, because like if something occurs to students, they feel more comfortable saying it, and they're not like waiting for an awkward time or something. Like they're just like when the question hits, so they don't like forget it because they waited for a break in the thing, or they waited for me to ask questions or whatever. I really, really like it. I think it's better for the students, and I think it's better for me. And I'm really hoping it works out this semester. And I think VTubing has really helped me. You know, I don't know if I would have even considered that though all that much, or like used chat in the same way even during COVID if I hadn't done some live streaming, you know? So I think that's really improved. I think I've gotten better at illustrating things maybe a bit. I don't know. And I like to think I've gotten better at being engaging. Because I've been doing streaming, I like to think that my lectures are a bit more engaging, but I'm not actually sure if that's true. I did get an email from a student at the end of this semester who called my lecture style the good type of chaotic. And I wonder if I would have gotten that feedback if I hadn't been doing streaming, because I feel like they're very similar skill sets in a way. So I think it has helped me. Accurate. I'm glad. I really liked that. I think that's one of my more treasured pieces of feedback. They're like little bits of feedback I get from students that I treasure, and I think that's going to be one of them. All right, next one. Would you ever reveal your streaming identity to your students? I think I actually did, like, many years ago when I was first starting this, before I even did streaming on this YouTube channel, when I was only making videos. I think apparently I actually did tell my students. I have no recollection of this. I have zero recollection of doing this, but apparently I revealed to some of my students my streaming identity. I know at least one student has found my YouTube because I was teaching stats, and she looked up she was looking up additional stats resources on YouTube, and she stumbled across my videos, and she's like, I recognize that method of explaining what the tail of a distribution is. I know that voice. That's Mylan, isn't it? And there have been multiple times where like I've been like, oh, I want to teach this student how to do this skill, or like something like that, and I happen to have a video of that I could send them as my VTuber self. Oh no, should I? And it's been like this big dilemma, and then I think like, well, I'm trying to decide whether to do it, it kind of times out, and like it becomes too late for me to send it. I don't know. This has been something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, about whether I should just like create a straight up connection between this channel and like teaching. And I've mentioned this before, but like other members of the faculty know that I do this. They know this, but Doctor, you should really announce your streams. I announced it, Eggy, kind of. I didn't announce it right when I went live, but hey Eggy, hey Nap, how you doing? How you doing? I announced this in the Discord like a week ago. I just didn't announce when I went live. I'm really bad at that. I'm really bad at marketing myself. You know that Reddit post? Hey Warpy, how you doing? But you know that Reddit post that we worked on like last fall to post to like advertise me as a streamer? It's still not approved by the Reddit mods. I don't think it's ever gonna get approved by the Reddit mods, so I might have to take another stab at that. But anyway, would I ever reveal my streaming identity to my students? I'm still pretty unclear on it, whether I want to do that, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of an inevitability that I do. It's an inevitability kind of that my students learn that I'm Mylan, and that it's entirely possible that one day all of you will know my alter ego name, my other name. And I'm not terribly uncomfortable with that happening. We'll see. I'll think they'll find out by themselves. Yeah, I think, like I said, well, at least one of them's already found out. I don't know how many people have figured it out, because like if they figured it out, they might just never tell me about it, you know, and like maybe they're talking about it in the class group chat or whatever. entirely super possible that that's happened. But there's also the thing of like, I'm at this university for who knows how long, and they are only at it for like 4 or 5 years. You know, like it could be any one of us in chat. That's true. Any one of you could be one of my students, and I wouldn't know. That's a little scary, actually. Oh man. But yeah, like some of you could absolutely be my students. It could actually be common knowledge that I have this YouTube channel among the student body at my university, and I don't know. I haven't seen any evidence of that, but kids, if any of you are watching, please start any in-class questions for Professor Mothman. You know, I wear Mothman t-shirts enough that I think that that student would still have plausible deniability. I don't think I'm a student. That's fair enough. I don't think you're, like, I do think there are some of you where I have enough evidence to say you are definitively not my student, but others of you, I don't know. You could be a present or past student. I'm kind of waiting for the day that somebody discovers my YouTube channel and only after signs up for one of my classes. Just subtly reference it, keep Mylan paranoid, please, no. A bunch of questionable fools, yeah. But I do think, like, I've realized that because of a lot of the things I do and say and who I am, it's kind of inevitable that if I get to a certain point, it will become obvious who I am, if it isn't already. And so I've kind of like, I guess I'm not like encouraging it or like taking steps myself to make it happen. I don't think I'm ever gonna do that. But I think it's kind of inevitable that the connection is made, you know? I get you. Yeah, I've resigned myself to that. I've resigned myself to it being inevitable that my students will know my YouTube and YouTube will know who I am at some point if I keep doing this. I think that's inevitable. I'm almost certain that some of you already know who I am. I'm almost certain. I know that certain members of V Theorem already know who I am. And I'm certain that many of you one day will figure it out. So I guess it's just inevitable. It's just what's gonna happen. One day it's gonna happen. LMIO, I don't. Yeah, I don't think Nep knows yet. I don't think Nep knows yet. But like I have been to Phi's wedding. I did go to Phi's wedding, so Phi knows. That was a really weird experience. Anyway. But yeah, maybe I'll reveal it one day, but we'll see. I've forgotten intentionally. Wait, Astral knew? Oh yeah, no, Astral knew because he commissioned me. You flossed there? Tyler? Oh yeah, all right, because Phi said that. I'm busy being up north. That's fair. Yeah, Tyler, I did apparently... I didn't floss at Phi's wedding, okay? I didn't floss at Phi's wedding. I flossed when I was hanging out at the mall with Phi and Toxo and my partner. That's when I flossed. It's become like an idle animation for me for some reason, and it's really... I don't even think about it. It just happens. It's really embarrassing. I do that in front of lecturers sometimes too. Oh no, I am cringe, but I am free. Anyway, how do you passively floss? I noticed power floss help. We need a 3D model. How do you build passively floss? Astral, I have so many... I don't know how to explain it. But it's like, you know how like sometimes you just like find yourself like bouncing your knee or whatever? Flossing as an idle animation is the only way I'd ever be able to floss. Built-in, you are all so correct. Yeah, I'm sorry, Phi. I was... In my defense, I was being cringe in a cringe location. We were in an anime merch store, okay? I think it's okay to be cringe in an anime merch store. And if I'm remembering correctly, I was between some shelves where I would be very difficult to see unless you were at exactly the right vantage point, which you happen to be at the right vantage point, okay? I've never once shamed you. I know, I'm shaming myself. I'm shaming myself. I have a lot of internalized shame. I have so much internalized shame. I want to go hang out with you again, though, Fi. One day I will go and hang out with you again, especially when you are not busy juggling a whole bunch of people and friends and family. Ah, okay. Also, Fi, you have awesome friends. I love your friends. Tell them they're cool. Okay, where were we? What was the steepest learning curve to beginning teaching? I have immense stage fright, so just lecturing itself. Lecturing itself was this. Actually, the steepest learning curve. Learning how to use. Well, one, getting over my stage fright, but two, learning how to use the learning management system was rough. Oh god, and learning how to make lectures. I'm still learning how to make lectures from scratch, like organizing. I think it's the learning management system. That's the course website where you upload all your materials and you do all the grading and you post all the grades and all the students submit their assignments. Like, using that system, steepest learning curve, probably. There's a lot of things that are a steep learning curve, but that, nobody prepares you for that. No one prepares you for that at all. That's never part of your education. Like, professors aren't really off. Most of the time, we are never actually taught how to teach. I sought out classes on how to teach that I was not required to take because I knew I wanted to teach. But no one ever teaches you how to use the learning management system. That's not a thing. Like, well, at least for me. Like, people didn't even tell me which learning management system my university used. I just happened to find out on my own for reasons. There was no guidance. There was nothing. A lot of the tutorials online are super out of date and don't actually apply to the current version of it. Figuring out how to use that effectively was the worst. It has so many features, 90% of which you're never going to use, and the 10% of the ones that you do use are super confusing. All the tutorials are way out of date. Many of them don't apply anymore. It has some features that you think, why would anyone ever want this? And it is missing some features that everybody obviously needs. And I hate it. I hate it. And that was the hardest thing to learn, is how to do that. In fact, like, we're switching to a new one soon. And now I've only just semi-gotten a hold of the one that I've been using for my entire career, and now we're switching to a new one, and now I need to figure out how to use a new one sometime in the next couple of years. And if anyone, like, I've never seen, like, I lurk on a lot of places where a lot of professors talk with each other online, and like, I've never seen a professor who actually liked their learning management system. I used to help my friend with classes when we had the same ones. After a year, he said my teaching had actually improved. What I noticed was sometimes you need to give incomplete information. That's true. Teaching is so weird. Like, sometimes there are a lot of cases actually when I think it makes more sense to give incomplete information. And I think it's like, I try and give incomplete information sometimes, either for like, and let students fill in the blanks, or I'll ask the class, what do you think goes in this? Like, there's a missing piece here. What's the missing piece? Or what do you think connects these two ideas together? Because I want to get them to like actively engage with the subject. So it's very easy to info dump, but it takes practice to like selectively info dump, if that makes sense, to give students enough information to connect the dots, but not fully connect them so that the students can actively engage their brain and connect them themselves and stuff. Otherwise, the students' brain fry, yeah, that too. You don't want to overload them. You want to give them time to process the information and encourage them to actively process the information and like logic it out and make their own connections in their head. Art can be in the spaces between the lines or something, yeah. And learning, I think, is also the spaces between the lines. I think it's way undervalued that a lot of learning doesn't happen just from listening to what somebody's saying. It's from you making your own connections, you know? That's really important as a teacher, but makes one infuriating as a regular conversational partner. So true, Torg. So true. Many of the techniques that I use as a teacher would get people rage quitting conversations on me constantly. I super agree. And I do worry. I have to actively try not to do that, because most of the talking that I do is me giving lectures, right? So like, at least verbally, like typing, I have a lot of conversations over text, but if I'm talking out loud, most of the talking out loud I do is in the context of teaching. So I have to be careful not to let like the way I talk when I'm teaching be the way that I talk to friends or something, because then I wouldn't have any friends. Ah. All right. Hello, Dr. Ackerman. I want to know what's your favorite part about teaching at the college level, and do you have any advice on teaching in a lecture environment for aspiring professors or teachers? My favorite part about teaching at the college level, I like how independent it is. Like, those are my students, but they're not like, I'm not babysitting them, you know? Like, there are some students where it kind of feels like I have to babysit them, but like, for the most part, they're independent adults, and like, by the time they get to college, there's some of them, that have like, they're bringing in so much knowledge, and they have a lot of like knowledge and experiences that I don't have, and they're tying that into the material, and they'll like some of them, we can have like real like conversations about the material, and they'll bring up ideas that I've never thought of before, and like, or like ask me, how does this apply to this situation that I've never thought of before? And it's so much fun, like talking with people about this and getting excited about it overall again, and like having some parts of it being more of a conversation than it is a lesson, and like them contributing their own. I don't know if it would be the same at like the high school level. Maybe at the high school level you might see that. I don't know if it would be the same at the middle school or elementary school. I'm not a teacher, but sometimes I give lectures about my lab work to school children. I know completely different. I don't know. It's completely different. So I need to keep gauging what they already know. Who does? Yeah. It is one of the hardest parts of teaching is you need to remember that the people you're talking to do not have the same knowledge that you do. And I think that gets harder to do as time goes on. One of the harder parts of teaching generally is like remembering what it's like to be a student. And I worry that the longer I teach, the less I remember. And I worry that that's making me a less effective teacher, like, because it's been a longer time since I didn't have this knowledge. And it's very easy to forget that some things that you just take for granted are things that they have never heard of in their life, like, and that's a very difficult thing. So CDM, I totally agree. That's one of the more difficult parts of teaching for sure. Yeah, my favorite part about teaching is like, even if students aren't an expert on them, or like sometimes students who have zero knowledge at all in the area that I'm talking about, because they're not already like so deep in the weeds, they'll bring in these like outside ideas that are actually super relevant, but I never would have made the connection because I'm like so deep in the traditional ways of thinking about things, and it's really fun. I miss teach. I know, right? Like, there are definitely downsides to teaching, but there are a lot of like really great moments. The aha moment, the moment when it finally clicks in a student's head. There are few things more rewarding than that. When a student realizes they had a thought you never had, right? It's so cool. It's a blessing to teach people the base level of knowledge in the subject. That's also true. I teach mostly upper division classes, so students have already taken some classes in psychology. I can't imagine how difficult it is to teach an introductory class, Like, that sounds incredibly, incredibly hard. You have my full respect for that. Like, they've started assigning me lower level classes. Like, as of a couple semesters ago, I'm teaching my first like lower level class, but it's still not like the first psychology class you take. I've never taught like Psych 101. People who can teach like, that first class, that gateway class, that's really, really admirable to me. Because not only do you you have to assume that your students have zero frame of reference, it's also, when you're teaching an introductory class, you have to have such a broad range of knowledge. Like, you have to have knowledge of so many different aspects of your area. Like, in psychology, there are a billion different branches of psychology, and the introductory class has to touch on a lot of them. Whereas, like, upper division classes, you're narrowing down to a much more specific thing. People who can teach introductory classes are incredible. I think that's harder, honestly. Like, it's easier for the students, but it's harder for the teacher to teach an introductory class than it is to teach a more advanced class. I'm like, how do I even talk about acids and bases to fourth graders? But most are just interested in funny chemicals changing colors. Yeah. And that is true, though. Funny chemicals changing colors are pretty great. My favorite part of chemistry, I don't know much about chemistry at all, but my favorite part is just watching how different chemicals make flames different colors because I am at the heart of it a 10-year-old in the center of my being. I am just a small child and I like seeing things on fire. I like seeing pretty colors. Same TV. I know, right? Same, right, right. There are things that we don't talk about, but people are. I've been teaching primary schoolers. So my favorite part has always been the questions they ask that always seem out of the box. Yeah, I think that's like the one thing I'm sad I don't have younger because like once you get to a college level, I think a lot of the students are like kind of scared to ask questions or they're afraid of like looking stupid or something. So you don't get as many of those like off the wall questions. And honestly, the off the wall questions are one of my favorite things in teaching. I really love the off the wall questions, but I think the older you get and the further in education you get, the less comfortable most people get asking off the wall questions. If your students are laughing at 6'7", they are young enough. I don't know if my students are laughing at 6'7". You know, I pulled out Skibbity Toilet last semester, and I have never seen a group of college students in as much emotional and mental agony as that. It was so good. I do wonder how it is teaching independent adults. It's weird. It's weird. When people don't have questions for me, I will call it to the group. I know you all have brains that are thinking right now. At least one of you has a question. I like that, Nep. Yeah, I used to employ a lot of awkward silences to try and like get people to ask questions just to break the silence, and that was like decently effective. But like, you know, there wasn't always um it didn't always. If I don't laugh at 6'7", it's just funny to get Mylan to say 6'7". 6'7", 6'7", 6'7", 6'7". Did that help? Do you feel better now? Have I brightened your day? Not Skibbity Toilet. Hey, Kikatowaki-an. Hello, welcome. Not Skib. It was very good. The one of the nice things about growing older is that you can, if you use any of the hip slang or the like memes or stuff, people will be in such pain. I had to watch the whole Skibbity Toilet to connect with the right. Like I do spend an inordinate amount of my free time trying to figure out what is hip with the kids. Just so like to hold their attention, to keep them with me. And whether I use that I use it unironically and try and like make it seem like I'm actually hip with the kids, or I use it in such a way where it's obvious that I'm old and I don't really get this, but at least I can reference it, and it's funny because an old person is saying it. Like both of those I think are effective ways of keeping your students engaged. Do I have any advice on teaching in a lecture environment for aspiring professors or teachers? I'm a big fan of the Socratic method. This doesn't work, and especially because students are reluctant to say things. I'm hoping that having a live chat will help with that. I think it will. But to keep students engaged, well, first things like I try and go for it like really energetic. Like I try and be very energetic and emotive when I'm teaching. And some students don't like that, but most students seem to really like that. It helps keep their attention. Like I don't just try and like monotone. I make a very, very active effort to like make expressive faces and use a very expressive voice and stuff like that. References to things that they like. I try and adjust examples in class to things that I know that students will like. Like I try and reference pop culture a lot, and stuff like that. And I just like asking students questions to try and get them engaged, try and get them thinking about the material. I'll ask them like, what do you think happens next? Or how would you go about this if you were going to do this? Or, hey, anyone want to guess what this study found and stuff like that? I don't even know what that number... I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. But yeah, I think my advice would be try and like keep the energy going. Interact with your students. Don't just like passively... Don't just talk to them, like actually interact with them and stuff. What is happening? I think I'm too old to know anything about what's going on over there. What these numbers mean. I'm I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. I feel like this makes me nervous. I'm gonna keep going. How do you deal with managing deadlines? Personally, I find myself feeling like I'm in a constant self-imposed marathon of looming deadlines nonstop, and the stress of it gets to me a lot. Oh, my way of dealing with deadlines is I try and get things done as soon as I can. I'm not a procrastinator, and I don't know if there are definitely some downsides to this approach, by the way. There are a lot of downsides to this approach, but my general approach is I try and get things off my plate as soon as I can. Like, if somebody asks me for something, I try and do it as as soon as possible after I get it. Like when Sai asked me, like floated the idea of an Adventure Time model, I was working on it within half an hour. Um, like I'm currently procrastinating homework. Yeah. Like when I was an undergrad, the way that I dealt with it is I set aside Monday morning. In undergrad, every week, I would set aside Monday morning, and the only thing that I would do on Monday morning is I would go through all my readings and do all of my homework for the week. That's what I would do. And that way, the rest of the week was free. Like, managing deadlines is generally the second I have all the materials I need to work on something, I do it. I do it well before the deadline if I can. Having a to-do list is also really nice. Like just a list of all the things that you need to do. I like putting to-do lists with deadlines on there, and I usually start it with the closest deadline, and then I work to like the furthest deadline kind of deal. But like generally, I just try and complete things when I have the time and motivation. I do not wait for deadlines. I just go as soon as I can. And like I said, there's downsides to this too. Like it's usually very effective at managing things, and I usually finish things like weeks before the deadline, or sometimes like months before the deadline. But sometimes like this bit me in the butt a couple of times when I was in grad school. Like one time I wrote a paper a full month ahead of time. Like I finished the paper a full month ahead of time. And then 2 weeks before the paper was due, the professor said, well, none of you have started on this yet, right? I'm going to change the entire assignment. And I said, I've already finished it. I've already finished it. And he's like, there's 2 weeks till the deadline. I'm like, I know. I just wanted to get it out of the way because I knew the end of the semester would be busy. And he said, well, I'm changing it anyway, and you still have to do the new version of the paper. Like, I'm still mad about that. But like, there are downsides to being too proactive because people will assume, because most people do procrastinate, and people will assume that people procrastinate and then they will change things. And it sucks. Punishing you for doing the work early is wild. That sounds I'm still mad about it. I'm still frustrated about it. Like he said, oh, well, you can still send me the paper and I'll read it and I'll give you feedback, and then he never did. Motherfucker. I have the task at hand. I say to myself, I'll handle it, and I somehow do. I have the task at hand, actually. I'm just like, I can do it after the stream. I don't need to wake up early. If I'm too sleepy and don't do it right now, I'm still somehow finish it tomorrow. That's intense. No, I just finish it as soon as possible, because I really value my free time, and I hate having things looming over me. And so I just try and get them off my plate as soon as possible. Like if I'm working on a group project, the way that I deal with it is I just finish my part as soon as possible and pass it on to the next person, because as long as it's on their plate, I don't have to think about it. So yeah, usually as soon as I get the things, I deal with them. Like that letter of recommendation email, I got that earlier today. I'm probably going to do that right after stream and send that in right away. Because like the deadline is not for a little while yet, but I just want it off my plate. I don't want that looming over me. I don't want to, that's how I deal with it. Like I said, there's downsides, but like that's how I deal with it. And I don't know if that will work for everybody, but I think that's the last one I have on the slideshow, but I did get one more while we were streaming, and that's from Tyler. It's how often does Freud actually come up in class for psychology, despite the view on a lot of his stuff being outdated? I have never mentioned Freud in class as part of the curriculum. Like, students will bring up Freud for sure, every once in a while, but because I mostly teach upper division classes, like, most of the stuff I'm teaching Freud has nothing to do with. And if he does, he's so out of date that it's not really worth mentioning. I think the only times that Freud really comes up is probably in an introduction to psychology class when they're talking about historical psychology, or a history of psychology class. Those are probably the only times when we mention Freud. I think they only really mention him in like historical context. So, which would typically only really show up in intro to psych and then history of psychology classes. So I never bring up Freud. It's like Darwin on biology. Yeah, I've never taken too many biology class. I've never taken a college level biology class, so I wouldn't know for sure, but that sounds about right. Yeah. Just like, this is an important historical figure. A lot of his ideas no longer really apply. I've never mentioned him. I mostly talk about Freud when the most I ever talk about Freud is when somebody who has barely ever taken any psychology classes is like, how do you feel about Freud? But otherwise, Freud just doesn't come up. How about Schadenfreude? Isn't that a different... I don't think the name Freud and Schadenfreude... Do those have similar linguistic roots? I'm not sure. I don't really talk about Schadenfreude either, though. That's not really part of anything that I teach. I guess it's part of social psychology, but I don't really talk about that in my social psych class. It would be interesting to look into the psychology of Schadenfreude, though. But yeah, we just don't... I don't talk about Freud. I don't really bring him up. Sometimes, every once in a long while, students will bring him up, but it just doesn't come up. Yeah, they're both German-based. That's about all I know. Like, yeah. It's the first thing I thought of that has Freud in it. Fair. Yeah. But yeah, Freud doesn't really come up. Just doesn't come up. Have you ever trained an Uma in class? No. Have I brought up Uma Musume in class? Yes. Not in lecture, but I had a student last semester who sat right in front of the lectern, and sometimes we'd talk before or after class, and that student played Uma Musume and was going to cosplay from Uma Musume, so sometimes we'd talk about Uma Musume before, like, immediately before or after class, but I've never trained an Uma in class. I do not have Uma Musume installed on my work computer. That'd be highly unprofessional. Yeah, I'm just wondering if, like, the etymology or, like, the linguistic origin of the Freud and Schadenfreude and the Freud and Freud's name, if they have a common etymology, like a common linguistic sort of, like, starting point. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a linguist, much less a German linguist. Yeah, that's all the questions that I have. And Freud comes from Freud. Oh, so maybe they do actually have that common, like, linguistic ancestor? That's neat. Did you see Agnes Tachyon cosplay outfit in Z's gaming channel? No, I have Z's gaming channel muted because I got sick of all the Wordle notifications. I'm sorry. Your assignment is to diagnose Agnes Tachyon. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I wouldn't be able to do that. I did consider cosplaying Agnes Tachyon, and I don't think I considered cosplaying her to class, except wearing pants instead of tights. I thought about that. I didn't end up doing it, though. I think I'm kind of vaguely planning on cosplaying an Uma, though, for this coming con season. We'll see. Schaden is the opposite, so, like, so the etymology of Freud is joy. Yeah, I do wonder if Freud's surname... I know Astral said it. I kind of want to look it up as well. If the Freud surname also came from the word joy. Possible. At risk of sounding like a total noob, who's Agnes Tachyon? That's fair. Agnes Tachyon is was originally a racehorse in Japan. And now Uma Musume, a gacha game by Cygames, has created an anime girl version of that racehorse. So that's who Agnes Tachyon is. She's also my daughter. Because she's the science one. She's the science one. She wears a lab coat when she races and everything. But yeah, I think that's all the questions, unless anyone... so the link to submit questions is in the description. But unless... Or you can ask them in chat. But unless anyone has any other questions, I think that's all I've got. That's all I've got for you. And I do want to see Sai's graduation stream. But yeah, any last minute thoughts on opinions on beans? Oh, great question, Nep. I like beans. They're yummy to eat and they're good for you. I'm a big fan. I really like to put black beans and kidney beans and things. Shouldn't a lab coat slow her down? Torg, you need to look at some of the outfits some of these Umas in. A lot of, like, some of them are racing on dirt in heels. Like, I don't think that's a consideration. Tachyon as a child just named Logic. I love that. Graduation. Oh, she's not graduating as a VTuber. She's celebrating the fact that she has successfully defended her PhD thesis and now officially has her PhD. She's celebrating her graduation from her PhD program. She's not graduating as a VTuber. She's celebrating her graduation from a PhD program. No, you're fine, CDU. I keep forgetting. Wow, did you draw Sai's gown? I did. We might have to go over to her stream and see what's happening over there and see if she's
absolute concoction.
Oh, yep, there it is. It's out. It's publicly available knowledge now. Yes, there was one more secret hidden inside Ares 2.0 live 2D model that I have been keeping secret all this time. Did I see Eggy die in a hole? No. How do you think the pressure to publish papers in order to maintain academic positions has impacted the academic environment and research quality? Horribly. PogChan Senpai, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I think it's a horrible... Publish or perish culture is really bad. I think it's restricted the type of research questions people are asking. I think it has restricted the creativity and methods and stuff because there's just... The focus is on publishing as much research as you can, not necessarily on the quality of the research that you're publishing or how innovative your methods are or whatever. Like, oh, watch Eggy dig a hole. I heard fall in a hole for some reason. Me and Eggy dug a massive hole down to bedrock, and I'll have to check that out. But yeah, no, I think publish or perish culture has been super detrimental. Article slop, yeah, I think it's enabled the proliferation of predatory journals. I think it has generally enabled I think it's bad. I think it is bad. I think it's put more pressure on academics to publish, which has led to more slapdash types of research and stuff. It's bad. It's publish or perish is bad. I think it's awful. I think it needs to go away. I think it is actively detrimental to science. More is not always better. And I think it's just really bad for quality of life for researchers as well. That's my general opinion on that. Oh. All right. I haven't really seen it creep into my field yet. I'm genuinely curious how it'll show up. I hope you never experience it. I really do. I really, really do. Hope that you would. Yeah, no problem, PogChan Senpai. This was fun. I would love to do this again. But for now, I want to see my beautiful child's graduation celebration stream. So I think I'm gonna... Lots of great researchers burning out now, right? Quitting. Super agree. Super agree, CDM. And it's really put me off research in general. Like, I intentionally went the teaching route. Like, I love teaching, but one of the reasons I chose the teaching route is because that seems I'm coming in at a late minute. Yeah, hi Xenotime, how you doing? But yeah, unfortunately, I think I'm gonna end the stream now. I think I'm gonna be done for now. But I would love to do this again. I had a lot of fun. I would love to hear more questions from you sometime. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this again. But for now, just in time to go to Sidere, exactly. I would like to raid Sai now. So let us go to Sai. We're gonna go to Sai. Yeah. I think... Oh, hey, the Reaper's waiting. Sorry, I'm ending. But thank you all for coming. Thank you all so much for coming. Let's go and say congrats, Sidere. Oh, just in time to sub. Thank you so much for the sub. Thank you, thank you. All right, okay, let's talk another time. Just one voice in my ears. Take care, everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye bye. Let's all go to Seaside. Bye bye.